Alright, so today what I'm going to start doing is drilling some of the spot weld holes out of the original aprons and removing the aprons with the shock towers together. Originally I'd bought new aprons and was thinking of just reusing my shock towers, but there's a lot of, obviously a lot of drilling to do there to get those separated, and I don't know that there's any major benefit to it. I do have some repairs to finish at the top. Like as you can see, I cut out that section right there in the middle, the little flange on each apron that goes over top, because they were rotted out just like these over here originally. So I had to repair the top of the shock tower and splice in some material over there. So, but I bought these thinking I was going to change them out, but I'm just very unimpressed with the stamping and just the quality in general of the part. It just seems pretty bad. So for instance, on the front, this front battery side of the apron, there's damage on here. I got these from Mustangs Unlimited a number of years ago when they were sitting in a box, but unfortunately they went out of business before I ever opened the box. But I mean, you can see the wrinkle and it just looks like it slipped in the mold in the stamp, and they just hammered it anyway. So I just can't really, I really can't fix that. I'd have to splice a whole piece in there again, which kind of puts me back to where I am anyway with what I currently have. And so I'm not a fan there. And some of the other cuts are just a little bit, it's not great. Well, and then I bought the rears, because at the time they didn't have anything but the fronts. It was around COVID time or whatever. So everybody was out of everything. But I got the rears from NPD, and they're kind of crappy. I mean, there's no other way of putting it. They don't have the bend here at the edge that goes down. So the little flange that hooks down at the end, they don't have that. So they're not going to be as rigid until you put that bend in there. They don't have any of the holes in there. So I would have to then go and cut all these holes. Well, obviously not the rust hole, but I'd have to cut these fastener holes in there myself. And then this one was dented right here where the paint's missing off of there. It was, creased in pretty bad. So I tried to bring it out a little bit, but it's just kind of mangling it a little. But I can't really restore that bevel right there that they have. Like, it's a pretty straight line there, which is kind of right here. This bevel on there, or that little kick at an angle, and then another kick at an angle. I can't really get that crisp. And this one it's just a garbage line. It just looks terrible. So so I'm leaning more towards just patching what's on these, replacing some of this rear area, and just stripping anything away that has any rust on it, obviously. But overall, there's not a ton of rust on my aprons. So, the tops, obviously, yes, but like a lot of people have problems with the battery tray area, and that thing looks solid as a rock over there. So I can't complain. But yeah, they look really good inside. So I don't really have any major rust. I mean, there's a light surface rust down there. I can just take that off of the wire wheel. I'm just very unimpressed with the replacements, and for the work I'm going to put in. If I have to take all the spot welds out around the shock towers and then pull the shock towers out with the the mounts down there at the bottom, I'm not really helping myself. I might as well just drill the spot welds out of there, the ones holding it to the radiator support, and then the row along the back, and then the whole thing will come off with the shock tower. At which point then my geometry is already there. I already have that arc, or that that basic profile already established. So it should go in a little bit better over here on the other frame piece. And really that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm trying to get these off. If I can put these onto this frame over here, then I can start welding this thing in. I don't want to weld it in. I got all my dimensions right as far as my heights, doing the leveling of the whole car. Everything's in the right place. But I want to confirm that the fenders fit right. So I put the doors on, a couple weeks ago, just so I can, check the lines going down where the fenders are. But I don't want to weld anything until I put the aprons on and make sure that the fenders sit correctly and my door gaps look good. So that's really where I am. So my next step is getting these off the car, and then, or say off this old frame, and then getting them, temped in on the new frame rails, and seeing, you know, what everything looks like. I have all the dimensions on there, obviously, you know, all the widths and heights and everything, so it shouldn't be too much rocket science there. But yeah, so I'm going to start drilling some of these out and just try to get them, start to take them off. All right, so I got done last night drilling a lot of the spot welds out. I've loosened up the bottom of the apron on each side, so, or I guess on this, you know, just on the passenger side. I've got all the spot welds drilled out of there, and then same thing on the front, along with the ones tying it into the radiator support. So the radiator support is now loose at the front, and I started working in here I really was drilling them all from inside the engine compartment, you know, coming outward, just because the only ones that really matter are the ones in the aprons, as far as having the holes on the inside, because you're going to weld them back to the new frame rail. Inside the shock tower is kind of a mess. So obviously there's rust to contend with, but separating these spot welds that are holding the tabs down at the base of the shock towers, the ones that tie into the top of the frame rails, the spot weld configuration they use is kind of, or I guess the randomness of where they put them is kind of a little bit troubling. But so they put one towards the back here, but then and I was able to drill that one out. I could actually locate it and drill it. But this one, they did one like up here on the edge of this tab. So it went from like the edge of the tab to the top of the frame rail. It made it kind of a pain because you really couldn't just go drill it, because it was a really weird shape, kind of a, you know, almost like a smeared weld or something. So I had to, you know, drill into it and grind it, do some other things just to get it to break free. The front side was a real nightmare. I got the inside one obviously to come out, but then I couldn't for the life of me get this thing in here to the one that's more towards the outside to come out of there. Now, everything being said, it doesn't really matter. I just need to get it free, because I'm going to change those tabs anyway, because I don't like the way the edges are rusty, or were rusty and kind of eaten away. So I'm going to probably just chop them off. When it's all said and done, I'll slice them off and then replace those with either just a plate, or maybe a plate with gussets, or even like a piece of 1/8 inch angle iron or something that I can put in there, because you won't see that ever again once I put those beef up plates across the top, you know, going to the new rails. So it really won't matter. But they definitely are a challenge to get to separate when you can't really tell where the weld is. You're just kind of grinding everything. I couldn't get a grinder in there, obviously, because of the shape of it. But now, all that being said, I still have to loosen or take out the spot welds that are on the other side of this face going into the rail, and those are going to be tricky. So because you can't really see them, because you've got that piece in the way. So you've got the engine mount part, or whatever you want to call it, the part that ties in the cross member, or you've got that. I guess it's engine mount, it's not cross member. You've got that piece in there in the way, blocking where you can get to the spot welds. And then you additionally have spot welds on the bottom that are tying these plates, or these two brackets that are on each side of that. And so you have to get to those as well. So what I'm going to do is take the plasma and cut down to this seam in here, this elbow, or what do you call it, this angle right here, the 90. I'm going to cut along the 90 all the way across and up, and then cut that whole bottom, like the top plate and this front plate or side plate out. So if I cut those out of the way, then I can get to the spot welds that are down in the bottom that are tying it to those angle pieces underneath there, and I can also get to the ones that are on the back wall. I just think that's going to be the easiest thing. Now, when it's all said and done, I'll probably end up having to weld some of those back in. I'll have to figure out how I'm going to go about doing that. I mean, the ones on the bottom won't be hard. I can just drill holes through those bottom brackets and then drill up, or weld up from the bottom. The ones on the face in there, I'm not certain yet what I'm going to do there. I may just put additional welds on the front and the back of it, not worry about the part in the middle. So either way, I think it's fine. But that's the plan at this point, at least. So today, I'm probably just going to drill out some more of the spot welds on the other side, get those aprons freed up, and then on a different day do the plasma work, because I really don't want to open the garage right now because it's hot outside, and let all my air out. But I really can't be plasma cutting with the doors closed and everything, gas myself out. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at for now, and I'm going to keep working at it. Okay, so this is exactly what I was talking about on the other side. So the rear flange, I'm going to throw a shadow there. I drilled the two spot welds out, and that one came up pretty easy. I mean, I can get a spreader underneath that. Whereas on the front, See if I can zoom in a little bit here. You can see I've got my chisel, or my spreader is hammered in from the outside, or from the inside the engine compartment, and you can see it through that hole. But you'll notice the lump that's right there, that whole lump sticking out, that's some sort of weld that they put on there. So that edge is not spreading at all. So there's almost no way of getting that thing off without absolutely destroying it. You can see a little bit of a blob of a weld, like I guess right, oops, sorry, on camera, right there, and right, kind of run sideways, right, between there and there. And then even down here, I don't have a whole lot of edge showing up, even though I have that weld drilled out. I mean, granted, some of that's from corroding away of the flange probably, but that in the middle is not. That's no kidding like a weld. Or I was thinking a braze, but I think it's a weld because I don't see any brass or whatever color in there. So, but yeah, so really the only thing I can do is grind that thing with the finger little sander there and see if I can break that part off and hope that it pops up. So yeah, it really kind of sucks. It would be so much easier if they just used 2 spot welds and were done with it, but apparently they went over and above there. So good times ahead. All right, so I've got all the spot welds drilled out on the bottom. So kind of a random assortment of where they put them. Yeah, these 2 that made sense there, the same there and there, and then this one they did up on the edge for whatever reason. I'm not really sure what that's all about, so that was kind of interesting. And then down here, another 5 of them. And then over here, only 4 on this bottom one, and then 4 up here, but of course I got my nice big rust hole there, so I have to figure out what I'm going to do with that. I'd like to see if I can find one of these pieces, because this thing really, I mean, it's spotted on, but you can definitely swap that piece out. The rest of it looks fine. If I can't just get another one of those, I'm going to get it all blasted, I think, and see what it looks like when it's all done. But I just don't like that. So if I can find, this piece and this piece and just change both of these, I'd feel a little better, because then as long as they're a little better steel, like this one over here, with a little better condition, that'd be good. So, but worst case scenario, if I can't, I'll figure out how to repair it. But I'd really rather not use it. I think there's a little bit of pitting in here. So I mean, there's kind of like old crusty undercoating on there too. But I think there's some rot there. So I'm not liking that, especially on something that's tied to your engine mounts. So I'll have to see what I can do with that, if I can find one of those somewhere. I just haven't seen one of those on one of the websites, any of the sales sites, but wasn't looking specifically for it, so maybe I will. Anyway, but looking pretty good so far. I think I got everything out. The only thing I will say is I do have to go up inside this groove in there to get spot welds out, which is obviously impossible. So that being said, I am going to be cutting a hole out here. I just no longer have to cut to get to this, so I'll probably just blow a hole right through here, back up a little bit, take a big circle out of that, and that way I can hit the spot welds on the interior wall, and then same thing on the other side, and take those pieces off. And I think that'll get me where I need to be, toward those aprons and shock towers will all come off together. So we'll see. I mean, it would be ideal if that will happen, because then I can just try to slide it on the new one and see how it fits and if it lines up my fenders and so on and so forth. So that's where it is for now. I'll have to do some digging, see if I can find any of those brackets online, and go from there.
All right, so what I'll need to do is figure out where along this back area, of course it's blazing hot right now, where along in here there's another spot weld. So I'll have to look at that in a little bit when it cools off and see if I can figure out where that spot weld's sitting in there. And then I should be able to grind that section out, and then the whole apron should release at that point. Well, the apron with the shock tower. Okay, so I hit it with a wire brush a little bit, and now you can actually see them. So there's one right here. You can see that. Sorry, let me try to zoom in a little bit. Yeah, so there's a spot weld right there. There's a spot weld right there, and there's a spot weld right there. So all three of those will have to be, either drilled or ground out in order to let that piece release off the inside of that. Yeah, so it looks like that did it. Getting those three out ended up breaking this free. So this whole thing will come off now. I'm going to leave it on there for now while I do the other side. But once I get the other side cut out and drilled and everything, then I'll probably drop this back down to the floor and then slide the pieces off of there. I won't bore you with the other side because it's pretty much identical to what I just did. There we go. All right. All right, so as you can see, there's multiple spots where they were holding it on there. A lot more than I thought. So they got, looks like there was 5, well, yeah, basically 6 of them across there, but 3 of them hidden. And then over here, there might have been 3.5 hidden, so to speak, because one of the, I think this side had one spot weld that was like really, really faint on the inside here, which isn't surprising, which means it's probably not bonded real well underneath the bottom, but they might have hit it a couple times just to make up for that, at which point I didn't see that one. So anyway, it's off now. And then these I plan on taking over to a guy to get them sandblasted, just to see what's left when I'm, what kind of metal is actually left after they get blasted. So that's about it for now.
it's about as far as I can go without getting them stripped down. And it's definitely easier to get it blasted than have to sit here and try to scrub all this undercoating and everything else off of there, trying to scrape that off. It's just so dry and doesn't really want to move. And you try to hit it with a wire wheel, it smears and everything else, so it's just kind of a mess. So I think that's where I'm going to go with it, and pick this up on another day when I get that stuff done, and I can actually put them on here and see how they fit, to see, you know, what kind of fender height I have and alignment in that regard. So that's about it for now.